A reading from Ecclesiastes, verses 1 through 8. For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up as what is planted. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to break down, and a time to build up. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, and a time to dance. A time to throw away stones, and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to seek, and a time to lose. A time to keep, and a time to throw away. A time to tear, and a time to sow. A time to keep silence, and a time to speak. A time to love, and a time to hate. A time for war, and a time for peace. This passage has always been one of our favorites, and I have returned to it many times over the years. I think you may have noticed we have an illumination out in the front that has that passage. Certainly in the last 6 months, Ecclesiastes 3 has surfaced in my mind as I've entered into a rather dark season. But to be honest with myself, what I'm experiencing now pales in comparison to the dark season that my parents went through during World War II. At age 15, my mother lost her mother. With 4 younger siblings to care for, her father took her out of school, putting an end to her formal education. My parents met in Algeria, North Africa, in the midst of the worst war the world had ever seen, a war that took the lives of over 60 million people. After they met, there was little chance, let alone any guarantee, that they would ever see each other again. Nonetheless, my father proposed marriage to my mother before he left, and she accepted. But they had to wait. They wrote to each other for over 5 years, keeping their engagement alive through nothing but handwriting and a few photos. They did this in a time when you had to wait weeks, if not months, for responses to letters. They kept faith, placed a stake in the sand and for their future, and bravely faced the resistance they knew would come from 2 families of different faiths. She raised in the Orthodox Jewish tradition, he in the Christian tradition. On January 5th, 1950, through persistence, my mother arrived in New York from Algeria via Cherbourg, where she boarded the RMS Queen Mary. You can clearly see the triumph on their faces in their wedding photo, placed here on the communion rail, taken on February 8th, 1950. They had made it through. They had turned the page. The dark season had passed. Spring had arrived, and they were filled with hope and the joy of a new life together. My mother has had a long life. It is perhaps a cruel trick of life that the longer you live, the greater chance of being remembered more for your frailties, mental lapses, and crotchetiness than for who you really have been much of your life. Looking through the photos and the artifacts of my parents' life, I have realized that it's not the memories of the disappointments, arguments, and afflictions that endure. Even the tragedy of dementia, which has hit our family so hard, cannot hold sway if we hold fast to the important memories. I'm finding that remembering the love shared and joys of a life lived together, often in the simplest of things, raises those memories above those from the darkest seasons. My mother always considered herself Christian and Jewish. After that spring of 1950, she did not practice Judaism, but she always was proud of her Jewish heritage. And to honor that heritage, I would like to read the following prayer, translated from Hebrew, called the Yitzchak. May the Lord remember the soul of my mother, my teacher, Juliette, who is gone on to her world, because without making a vow, I shall give to charity on her behalf. As a reward for this, may her soul be bound in the bond of life, together with the souls of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah, and together with the other righteous men and women in the Garden of Eden. Now let us respond. Amen. Mom and Dad, I want you to know that the hope and joy of a bright future that was so present on your wedding day has not been lost with your passing. You have passed it on to me. I feel it now in the blessed life that I have with my dear wife, Cheryl, our daughter, Jennifer, son-in-law, Toby, grandchildren, Max and Kate, and the loving extended family that we have here in California and in other places in the world. I am grateful to you for the love you gave to us and for sacrificing so much for the sake of our well-being and happiness. But most of all, I am grateful to you for giving me the shining example of the life that you chose for yourselves and how committed you were to making it happen through whatever seasons, come what may. Thank you so much. I will always love you.